Welcome, dear listener. Take a moment to settle into comfort. Let your body rest where it is, sinking into the stillness that surrounds you. You are safe here. You are warm, and you are held in the hush of evening. Tonight, I will share with you a gentle story, a story of a quiet man, a forgotten scarf, and the soft threads of love that wove themselves through silence and time. This tale is not hurried. It does not rush or demand. It simply drifts like a train gliding along its tracks, like a scarf floating on a winter breeze. Let each word move slowly, calmly, easing your mind into a softer rhythm. Breathe in and breathe out. The day is over. And night is kind. Let us begin. The station was almost empty. Only the echo of footsteps, the low hum of a departing train, and the faint scent of stone warmed by sunlight lingered in the air. Eli stood beneath the tall iron beams, his hands folded loosely in his coat pockets. He often came here in the evenings, not because he had anywhere to go, but because he liked the stillness of the place once the rush of travelers had faded. The station held its own hush after dusk, as though the walls themselves had grown weary and were ready for rest. On this evening, his eyes drifted across the wooden benches lined neatly along the platform. Most were empty, save for one near the far end. On its corner lay something small and pale, almost glowing in the dim light. A scarf. It was folded loosely, as though someone had set it down in haste, or perhaps with the quiet intention of leaving it behind. Eli hesitated a moment, listening to the silence. No one came to claim it. No voice called out. The scarf remained unmoving, waiting. He stepped forward, each footfall soft against the stone floor. When he reached the bench, he leaned down and lifted the fabric gently into his hands. It was soft, softer than he expected, light as breath, yet carrying a warmth that surprised him. A faint fragrance clung to it, tender and unmistakable, lavender touched by something like wildflowers after rain. He held it carefully, almost reverently. It was not his, and yet as the fabric brushed against his fingers, a strange calmness settled over him. He looked around once more, searching the shadows of the platform. No one appeared. The scarf's owner was gone. For a while, Eli simply sat on the bench with the scarf resting across his lap. He traced its edges absent-mindedly, following the faint fray of thread at one corner, the delicate weave that caught the light in muted patterns. And as he sat there, an odd sensation began to grow within him, not sharp, not urgent, but gentle. A quiet longing, as though the scarf itself remembered someone's touch. He lifted it slowly, wrapping it once across his shoulders. The fabric fell softly against him, carrying warmth that was not his own. And in that stillness, he felt something unfamiliar yet tender, the faint echo of a presence. Like the trace of laughter left behind in an empty room, or the warmth of sunlight that lingers even after the sun has gone. It was small, and it was subtle, but it was enough to make Eli close his eyes and breathe in deeply. The lavender, the softness, the sense of something quietly missing, a scarf forgotten, a man waiting without knowing what he waited for. And in that quiet station, with the hum of the last train fading into distance, the scarf remembered her touch and passed that memory gently into him. That night, Eli brought the scarf home. His apartment was small, tucked above a quiet street where the lamplight glowed honey gold through the curtains. The rooms were simple: a table by the window, a single armchair, shelves lined with books he had collected over the years. He had never needed more than this, and yet as he placed the scarf carefully across the back of his chair, the room seemed different. The space felt less empty, as though the scarf carried with it a whisper of company. He left it there as he prepared for bed, its pale fabric catching the faint light of the moon. And when at last he lay down, with the hush of night surrounding him, the fragrance of lavender drifted softly through his mind. Sleep came gently, carrying him as though on quiet rails through the dark, and in that sleep a dream began. He was back at the station, but it was brighter, alive with the warmth of morning. A train was waiting, its carriages gleaming like brushed silver. Doors stood open, voices rose softly, footsteps echoed like a gentle rhythm. And then, amidst the motion, he saw her, a woman standing near the window of a carriage, her scarf pale, familiar, lifted in the breeze that rushed along the platform. She reached to steady it, laughter spilling from her lips like sunlight. Not loud, not sharp, just a warm, unguarded laugh that filled the air with ease. Eli stood at a distance, unable to move, simply watching. The sight was tender, dreamlike. He could not make out the details of her face, but her presence filled the space with something whole, something he realized he had been missing without ever knowing. The scarf danced around her shoulders, its ends fluttering like small wings. For a moment she glanced his way, not directly, but almost as if her gaze brushed past him, close enough to stir a quiet ache in his chest. Then the train gave a low, soft call. The doors closed, and slowly it began to move. The woman lifted her hand, holding her scarf to her chin as the wind pulled against it. Eli stood frozen, wanting to step forward, wanting to call out, yet the dream was not one of urgency. It held him in stillness, in silence. The train glided past, the image of her fading into silver light, and then the quiet returned. He woke with the dawn pressing faintly through the curtains. The scarf still rested on his chair, folded in the same gentle way he had left it. But now, when he looked at it, he felt different. The dream lingered, the sound of laughter that was not his, the warmth of someone who had never been there. He reached for the scarf again, letting it slip between his hands, and in the hush of morning, he wondered, who had left it behind? And why did it feel as though the scarf wanted to lead him somewhere? The days that followed unfolded slowly, like pages turning in a quiet book. Eli carried the scarf with him more often than he meant to, sometimes draped across his shoulders on his evening walks, sometimes folded neatly in his satchel. He told himself he kept it close in case he found its owner, yet deep down, he knew it was more than that. The scarf carried with it a presence, a warmth. Each time the fabric brushed his skin, he remembered the dream, the laughter, the glimpse of her, the way her scarf had fluttered like wings in the wind. One evening, as the station lamps began to glow against the indigo sky, Eli returned once more to the same platform where he had first found it. He sat quietly on the same bench, the scarf resting in his hands. The air was cool. A breeze swept gently across the empty tracks. He closed his eyes, letting the familiar scent of lavender calm his breath, and when he opened them again, she was there, not in a dream, not a fragment of sleep, but sitting just a few seats away, her posture unhurried, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her presence was quiet, almost as if she had always been there. She wore a soft coat the color of dusk, and strands of hair lifted gently as the air moved around them. Eli felt his breath catch, not in surprise, not in shock, but in something slower, something gentler. She looked down for a long while, as though absorbed in the stillness of the station. And then, almost absently, her gaze drifted toward him. Their eyes met. The moment was simple, no words, no gesture. Just two people sitting in the same quiet air, noticing each other as though they had been waiting for this very thing. Eli's fingers tightened slightly around the scarf in his lap. For a moment he considered speaking, but the stillness between them was so calm, so steady, that words felt unnecessary. Instead, he unfolded the scarf, smoothing it carefully across his knees. Her eyes followed the motion, and a faint smile touched her lips, the kind of smile that was almost hidden, almost shy, yet carried warmth like the memory of sunlight. He didn't ask if it was hers. He didn't need to. The look she gave him was enough, and in that shared silence, something passed between them, quiet recognition, a gentle thread tying one soul to another. The trains came and went. People passed by, yet they sat still, as though held in a softer kind of time. Later, as the lights dimmed and the station grew emptier, Eli placed the scarf beside him on the bench, not offering it, not insisting, simply leaving space for it to rest between them. She glanced at it once more, then let her hand brush against the fabric lightly, barely touching. And that small motion was more than enough. Two strangers, connected by a scarf that remembered more than fabric should. Two quiet hearts, resting in the same hush. The following evening, Eli returned again. It felt natural now, as though the station itself had become a meeting place arranged not by plan, but by something softer, something woven between them. The lamps glowed, the air was cool, and the rhythm of trains rose and fell like a slow heartbeat. And there she was, waiting on the same bench where the scarf had first rested. This time, she looked up as he approached. Not startled, not surprised, simply expectant, as though she had known he would come. Eli sat near, the scarf once again folded carefully in his hands. For a while, silence stretched between them, comfortable and unbroken. The sound of the platform footsteps, the distant echo of an announcement seemed far away. At last, her voice came, soft as a whisper drifting on the wind. You kept it. Eli looked down at the scarf, then back at her. It felt like it wanted to be kept. She smiled faintly, her gaze dropping to her hands. It wasn't forgotten, she said gently. I left it. The words lingered in the air, tender and deliberate. Eli listened, the quiet wrapping around them both like a second scarf. I thought, she continued, that perhaps someone kind might find it. Someone who would notice, someone who would stay. Her voice was steady, but beneath it there was a hush of vulnerability, as though she were offering him a fragment of her heart in the most delicate way she knew. Eli's fingers brushed the scarf as it lay in his lap. And you've been waiting? She nodded slowly. Not for anyone, just for the right stillness, the right eyes. For a long while, neither spoke. The breeze moved gently across the platform, stirring a strand of her hair. Eli watched her tuck it softly behind her ear, and in that motion he felt the dream return, the image of her laughing with the scarf tugged by the wind. The dream had not been only a dream. It had been the beginning of recognition. At last, he laid the scarf on the space between them, its pale fabric catching the light. I suppose it belonged to me too, he said quietly. Her smile grew then, not wide, not bright, but full. In the way that warmth fills a room, she placed her hand upon the scarf, just at its edge, close enough that Eli could feel the nearness of her fingers through the threads. And in that shared touch, the truth became simple, unspoken. The scarf had been waiting for him. And she had been waiting. No declarations were needed. No promises, no explanations, only the quiet realization that sometimes love arrives not with thunder, but with the hush of fabric, the breath of lavender, and the stillness of two souls finding each other at last. After that evening, the scarf was no longer something between them. It became something they shared. Some nights, Eli carried it carefully folded beneath his arm. Other nights, she wore it draped loosely over her shoulders, the pale fabric trailing gently as she walked beside him. The scarf held no sense of ownership. Now it was simply part of them, a thread that bound their silences together. They did not rush to speak. Their closeness grew in the quiet things, a slow walk along the station's length as the lamps glimmered against polished trail. A pause by the window of the waiting hall, watching shadows stretch across tiled floors. A moment on the bench where one would close their eyes and the other would listen to the hush of the night. Sometimes Eli adjusted the scarf gently when it slipped from her shoulder, smoothing the fabric with care. She never said thank you, she didn't need to. Her soft smile in response was more than enough. Other times, when the evening grew cool, she would tug the scarf so it covered them both, one end over his arm, the other resting against her neck. They sat like that for long stretches of stillness, the pale cloth bridging the space between them as though it belonged to neither, and to both. The station, once so empty, seemed to hum differently when they were together. The low echo of trains arriving and departing sounded less like departures and more like lullabies. The benches felt softer. Even the air itself seemed to hold them gently. They spoke little, yet their companionship filled the space more fully than words could. Each breath was shared, each glance a quiet acknowledgement of something they no longer needed to explain. It was not a romance built on grand gestures or urgent longing. It was a weaving slow and patient, like thread passing through cloth, a steady folding of lives into one another. And in that weaving, Eli felt something he had never known before, the sense of belonging, of being exactly where he was meant to be. One evening, as the scarf lay across both of their laps, he rested his hand lightly upon it. She did not move away. Instead, she let her fingers rest atop his. A simple layering of warmth. No words were spoken, no promises exchanged, only the quiet peace of two hearts resting together like trains that, after long journeys, have finally found the same track. The nights continued, unmeasured, uncounted. Eli no longer thought of the scarf as something found or something lost. It had become part of the rhythm of his evenings, part of the quiet space he shared with her. On one such night, the station was especially still. The air was calm, and the lamps glowed with a softened light, as though the world itself wished not to disturb them. They sat together on the familiar bench, the scarf folded gently between them. Its threads seemed to breathe in the silence, carrying with them every moment they had shared, the first glance, the unspoken recognition, the warmth of stillness. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The hush was full of breath, full of presence, full of something whole. A train drifted by, its carriages sliding past like shadows in water. The sound was low, steady, almost like a lullaby. Eli closed his eyes for a moment, letting it carry him. When he opened them again, he found her watching him, not intently, not searching, but with a softness that made him feel as though he had stepped quietly into a dream. She shifted slightly, and the scarf slipped, falling across both of their laps. He adjusted it without thought, his hand brushing against hers. She left her fingers resting there, their touch feather light yet grounding. The platform seemed to hum around them, not with the urgency of travel, but with the comfort of arrival. It was as though the scarf itself had led them both home, not to a place, but to a feeling. And so they remained, side by side, with no hurry to move, no need for words. The scarf lay between them, not as a barrier, but as a bridge, a reminder of how quiet longings can find their way into the gentlest of truths. As the night deepened, the lamps glowed softer, and the air grew cooler. She leaned ever so slightly toward him, her shoulder brushing his. Eli let his eyes fall closed again, his breath easing into hers, his heart wrapped in the same hush that surrounded them both. And in that tender stillness, the scarf remembered her touch. And now it remembered his as well. The trains came and went. The stars shifted in the sky, and on the quiet bench of a sleeping station, two souls rested together, wrapped in a silence that felt like forever. And now, dear listener, let this story stay with you as you drift deeper into rest. Like the scarf, may warmth surround you. Like the station, may stillness hold you. And like Eli, may you find peace in the quiet companionship of gentle love. Breathe in and breathe out. The night is kind. You may sleep.